Baden. He's published more than 24 papers on heroin and was responsible for the investigation of all heroin deaths in New York City at one time. Dr. Baden, you would have been investigating this if you were still the chief medical examiner.
Yes, as the medical examiner's office is doing right now.
The fact that he was found, according to police, with a needle still in his arm, in his vein, does that suggest that the overdose happened immediately?
Yes, the injection put him to sleep immediately before he had a chance to remove the needle from his arm. It's a painless way to go, just going to sleep and losing consciousness within less than a minute.
I've always wondered this, and it is sort of morbid, but does the person who overdoses, do they know they're overdosing as it's happening?
No, no. They know that they're feeling groggy and they're going to sleep, but that's what happens usually when they're taking the heroin injections. They'll feel groggy, they'll go to sleep, and they'll wake up in a little while. If you take too much, you just keep going to sleep and into coma until the lungs fill with pulmonary edema fluid, with fluid, and the person can't breathe. The cause of death is lack of oxygen, inability to breathe. Lack of oxygen to the brain caused the brain to die. It's
so horrible. It's so tragic to think about.
It is tragic, but it's the victim of an overdose does not feel any of it. He or she is just going to sleep. And it's tragic with all of the significance of what happened. And people with great promise can die just as easily as other people.
There's apparently a particularly lethal strain of heroin right now on the market. Don't drug addicts know that? I mean, don't you adjust somehow your behavior if you hear that there's a particularly lethal strain of heroin out there? You take less, baby?
What happens is the difference between prescription drug abuse and heroin drug abuse is prescription drugs, you know the pills you're taking. With heroin, you don't know what's in the packet, in the glassine envelope, and you have a trust that the guy you're buying it from is giving you the same level that he always gives you, and that guy doesn't know if it's been cut with something like fentanyl or put in the fentanyl. Is a narcotic. It's made in laboratory and it's very strong.
In other words, that's added to heroin to make it more potent?
Yeah, to make it more potent, yes. And if the person taking the drug gets a potency much greater than it usually has, that can cause death, and that's why there have been a number of deaths reported from the East Coast. Whether or not that's what happened here, the medical examiners, toxicologists will find out within a couple of days.
If that ingredient was added. You said most heroin addicts outgrow their addiction before they're 40 years old. Do they outgrow it or do they die from it?
We had figured out when I was chief medical examiner, we did all kinds of studies, that about 1% of the young population who use heroin die a year. So in 20 years, about 20% of the people will die. The others outgrow it. By the time they get to be 40, they can't get the funds to get the heroin, and one way or other they outgrow it. A person like Hoffman, unfortunately, had enough money to keep going, so he went on until 46.
Dr. Michael Baden, thanks so much for your expertise. We really appreciate having you here to explain all this.
Thank you, Allison.
And we will be right back with more.